Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for August 10th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I am here today to give you an update on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 25 live feeds. It was day 8 in the house, and the feeds were down for most of the day. So this is going to be a little bit quicker than normal, I would imagine. Um, but there's obviously plenty to talk about. If you haven't heard, there's a major update for why the feeds are down for most of the day yesterday. There was some stuff from the morning, and I also want to flash back a little bit to give you some extra context about a player that might end up being here that we didn't think would be here. So with me to talk about it all is Mari. How you doing, Mari?
Hi, Taran. I never would have thought that a week ago, when Sam asked me to be on this update, would we be talking about what we will be talking about today. So I'm here. We're gonna talk, and I can't wait. I wish we had more to talk about, but say love you.
Yes. Well, of course, let me catch you up on how we got to here with Riley as the HOH. Kirsten and Felicia stayed on the block after Heisen won the veto and chose not to use it. Lots of talk in the House has been about how the vote should be unanimous, that there should be no stray votes, just straight up take Kirsten out of the game. She's basically she's been included in social conversations. She's bonded with plenty of people. But strategically, she's been involved in basically zero conversations. She has talked to people about her own game. She's still talked about a couple of things like where did things go wrong? How could I potentially stay? Stuff like that. But when it comes to all of the stuff that we've been talking about with the structure of the House and the two sides and who's going to be safe next week, none of that has been including Kirsten because people have just assumed that she's going to be gone next week. In fact, just the night before, the night of day 7, we talked about that yesterday. In that conversation where in the have not room where Luke screwed himself, Heisen was talking about I was talking to Kirsten and she was like, yeah, next week. And I was like, like that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like an example of this is when Cameron was talking to Izzy, and let's see, this was happening.
And I love Riley. Good God Almighty, and I'm weird about the way that I feel because
I need you to take that off the
But you
soundboard.
know what? Fucking weird.
But you know what? Like maybe I'm a cold ass
I know it's
bitch,
not my
but
fault,
I don't care.
But it's not.
When that was happening, Kirsten tried to walk in the room, and Izzy literally just went, "Can you give us a minute?" Everybody else that walked in the room, she let them come in, and then let them leave, and then return to the conversation. With Kirsten, though, it was like, "I'm gonna need a sec," and then after she's like, "That was the first time I did that. That felt so good." But I think she felt most comfortable doing that to Kirsten because she was the most irrelevant strategic player in the House at that time. So, all of that in mind, of course, last night, or not last night, the night before, the night of day 7, we talked about this yesterday. Luke said the N-word in front of 3 people. And he said, whoops.
A little slip of the tongue.
A little slip of the tongue there. That's going to get me in trouble. Well, oh boy, it did. Because less than 12 hours later, Big Brother CBS released a statement saying that Luke had been removed from the game. They have a zero tolerance policy for this, and he has been removed, and the feeds have been down ever since. So that is why the feeds are down. Luke is gone. It will be addressed on Thursday's episode. And we do not yet know if this means that the eviction will be canceled. So that's the major update here, if you somehow haven't heard, because it's making all kinds of news headlines.
Yeah, and I think for me, I am actually very shocked that CBS was actually on the ball. I think you guys talked about it last night on the recap. for Luke to be removed so quickly, I'm so glad that it happened, and I'm shook. They stuck to their word. Wow, look how easy that is. I hate that the feeds have been down all night, so we don't. All of the reactions we get are going to be sanitized through the show itself, and whatever residuals we get afterwards. But yeah, I'm glad he's gone. I think the offender who was the one who did the offensive who said the offensive word being gone is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that this was a very clear cut case in my eyes of
Mhm.
like this whole thing working. The
Yeah.
live feeds were on, people saw it happen. It was a bad thing. CBS production said this is bad. He should be removed from the game. We thought he should be removed from the game. He was removed from the game. It's pretty good. Pretty this is how it's supposed to work. Big Brother Canada. What?
Pretty good.
And here's the thing, because I've been getting some questions like, oh man, Taran, with Big Brother Canada canceling their feeds, aren't you concerned that with this kind of stuff happening, Big Brother US is going to cancel their feeds too? And like for me at least, I feel like it's important to recognize that there are some bad actors in that argument.
Mhm.
There are people who are like, hey, you guys, you watch out. You stop getting mad at N-word sayings, because then they're going to take away your feeds.
Mhm.
And you have to like be very, I think, cautious of like the motivation behind that, because
Mhm.
the people that are saying that are probably, if you look, the same people that are trying to make excuses for the people that do these things. And if they
Exactly.
really cared about the live feeds, they would be supporting the decision and making this a positive story for the show and production, not trying to make it even more controversial, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's something I'll probably talk about like at the end, because you like to give me that little time at the end. But like, yeah, calling out racism is not a bad thing. Like, we need to be doing that more. That's the whole point. Having these live feeds on, having them on for long periods of time, not shutting them down, Canada, is the whole point of this experience. And if you're going to do things, if you're going to say things, you have to expect the consequences. So they kudos, you got it right. Production, you ate that. This just one thing. Just this one thing.
Yeah. All right. So so with that in mind, I want to start with a quick flashback. I haven't done this a lot in the live feed updates, but I talked about this on one of the recaps recently, maybe last night, that these updates have been so long
Mhm.
because there's been so much happening that I have had to cut content from the updates in order to make them not 3 hours a day. And a decent amount of that has been, I've been summarizing a lot of Kirsten's conversations, because they have been so outside of the strategic sort of landscape of the game. But one particularly important conversation that happened on day 7 that I did not talk about yesterday, in part because it was kind of a confusing argument. And also because it didn't seem like it would be that relevant, especially when there was lots of other stuff to talk about yesterday.
Yep.
But could end up being important, especially because Suri has been continuing to talk about it, or had continued to talk about it over the day, and then over that day, I guess. Suri, Izzy, and Kirsten were having a conversation in the loft outside of the HOH room, while Jared was having his long conversation with Riley that we talked about yesterday. They were initially talking about Kirsten's veto speech and how they really liked it. We didn't see it. And Kirsten says, I just want to apologize to you guys. I feel like I want to be able to have this opportunity to apologize. And they're like, for what? What do you mean? What are you apologizing for? And she says, well, I was told that I offended you in the comic room. And like right away, there's like a, like, what? What do you mean? You were told? Told by who? offended for what? Wait, what is happening here? I think immediately Suri is kind of like annoyed that like, wait, who's telling you that I was offended by you? Like this is a weird situation. She says, "Well, I guess it came off like I was fully in an alliance with you guys in front of everyone." At least that's what it was said to be, and it made people feel uncomfortable. Um, and Sari's like, I guess maybe I could see like maybe it made people feel uncomfortable if there were a lot of people in the room and you were talking too openly. Is that what it was? And Chris like, no, not exactly, but that's why I wanted to talk to you. And Sari's like, but this is just weird because I haven't talked to anybody about how I felt about it, except for you. um, so like, are you? I think what Suri is thinking in this moment is like, are you trying to pawn this off as somebody else telling you that I was offended, or are you just
Right.
trying to like, when it's really you that's trying to like?
Yes.
I think that's what she's annoyed about.
So, like, if you're wondering why Kirsten is on the block, watch this whole exchange here, because Kirsten is so weird when she gives too many names sometimes and not enough names other times. Like this whole people told me this. And it's like, okay, well, who told you? And then she's like, people. So it's like, again, like Taryn said, it feels like you're there, nobody told you this. It's you're assuming. And then on top of that, we saw the conversation where Sari sat her down and said, hey, let me tell you why I think you're on the block. And she told her point blank period why she thought she was on the block right after the nomination ceremony. So if Sari is like me, and Sari said in this conversation, if I have a problem with you, I'll tell you. You will never have to guess if I have a problem with you, because you will know, because I will tell you. And Sari is definitely like that. I know I'm like that. So if you are then coming up to me and saying like, oh, I just want to apologize because other people are saying that you're mad at me, but I didn't tell you I was mad at you. And then you're not helping us figure the situation out. And now it's feeling like you're actually the one mad. Like Kirsten, this conversation was really funny. A lot of people were mad about it online, but honestly, I've seen this conversation happen 20,000 times in my household, within my family. This definitely felt like a family argument, and it honestly, again, it's why Kirsten has dropped the ball and is an easy target. She really has not learned how to navigate um game versus personal information. Hate to throw that out there for everybody.
Not personal game information.
Not personal game information. She just not have a way with words to some people who can smell bullshit or who have done this so many times. But it was such a accidentally funny conversation to watch.
Well, that's why it was so funny, because you talk about how it felt like a family argument kind of, except like Izzy is there in the middle of that, inserting herself constantly.
Izzy the whole time in the middle. Exactly. If Izzy wasn't there, honestly, I felt if Izzy wasn't there, Kirsten would have talked to Sari like how Kirsten talks to Jared when they're alone. Like one thing I do love about Kirsten, and you said it, people do like her personally. People do like her as a person. It's just they don't trust her game wise. So when she is in the bathroom with Jared, the code switching is definitely there, and they talk what feels more authentic. I do feel that if Izzy wasn't there, Kirsten probably could have dropped that. She does have that kind of layer of sounding kind of fake sometimes, just like she just comes off like sounding really rehearsed sometimes, and that's not a bad thing. Sometimes you know you want to present your argument in a way that people understand, but I feel like if Izzy wasn't there, they would have dropped the pretenses and just would have been like, ayo sis, this is what happened. But Izzy's always there.
Yeah, so Sari, it says, yeah, if maybe offended was the wrong word. I was concerned for you, not for me. But listen, whoever is giving you your information is not reliable.
Yeah.
Because if you offended me, I would tell you. You know what did offend me is when you said that the reason you were in trouble was because you spent too much time with us in the comic room. And Kirsten again kind of like, but that's what I was told though. Um, and part of why this conversation is a little confusing to follow is because they keep cutting away from it and back to the Jared Riley conversation. And so like then we come back in and like all of a sudden Izzy's hot. And she's like, well, who's in the scary room? Who's in the HOH room? Who's in the have not room? And I'm like, why are you
what? Like, how
Why
did this get to this? Yeah.
And Kirsten's like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. And he's like, your tone right now though is kind of disrespectful. And Kirsten, well, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to be direct. And Cerie says, I know you're trying to be direct. I've accepted that that's how you communicate. And Kirsten's like, I'm just trying to talk to you, mano a mano. And Cerie's like, see, that's the thing. We're not mano a mano. We're both contestants in this game, but I am 53 years old. You don't talk to Miss Felicia like this. Would you talk to your aunt like this? Just, no. Like, so see, you wouldn't talk to your aunt like this. I get that we're both in a game, but like, still, I feel like I deserve a little bit of that respect when you're talking.
Yeah. This was probably the one time I was like, okay, Suri, I don't agree with you because, you know, like you do need to respect your elders, but your elders also need to respect you. You know what I'm saying? And that's again one of those things in our community is like you don't want to talk to your elders a certain way. But I am a fully grown adult. We're both fully grown adults here, so I can talk to you the way that I want to. However, again, Kirsten is not in a power position at this point. So if you are talking to people who relatively have your fate in their hand, in a BB game, you have to try to manage your tone a little bit better. It's not great, but that is the case here. And I just think this approach was just so bad. I don't understand how it got so bad because like you said, all we saw was them reacting to what they said her attitude was, and we didn't necessarily get to see her attitude. So it did feel like Cerie and Izzy were ganging up on Kirsten, but I just don't think that was what they were trying to do. I think Cerie was getting very, very frustrated because Cerie honestly felt like she told Kirsten like why she thought she was in that predicament, how she felt about her to her face. And now Kirsten is coming up to her and being like, well, other people are telling me this. And then she's not giving her any information on the other people. So I just think the levels of frustration could just continue to build in this conversation. And it's lucky that they broke when they did. And hopefully they can find common ground later now that Kirsten has more time.
Yeah, and it felt to me like, you know, again, we've talked a lot now this update about how Kirsten is basically removed from the strategic game at this point, and it felt to me like that was kind of part of it, where like it felt like Cerie is no longer looking at Kirsten as a strategic player, and I mean, Survivor, when you vote people out, they leave, but in Big Brother, the person that you are going to vote out is there for another like 5 days. And I think she's kind of like, we're no longer like, I'm just talking to you as a person now. And I'm not thinking game, and I'm not thinking about being super strategic with you, which obviously is a mistake in Big Brother because things can happen. So that conversation continues on and on from there, but Cerie is gonna sort of relay it to a few different people, primarily focusing on the like, you know, she should be talking to me with a bit more respect angle. Now she does, I think like in the moment she was pretty like hard line on it. When she retells it later, she's like, she's a little softer on it. She's like, maybe I was being a little much, but it's a little bit of a rift here between her and Kirsten, of course, and that rift has existed basically since Cerie found out that Kirsten was going around and doing a lot. So This is important to note, of course, because Kirsten might be staying on tonight. on tonight.
Today.
And she has a very good relationship with Matt and with America, and even with Riley, she has a decent relationship. And Riley, in that conversation with Jared, was talking about how she wishes Kirsten could stay in the house because she'd be a number for them. And in the episode we saw last night, she said, "I could still work with Riley." And the only thing that might work against that is the fact that she is also close with Mimi, and I think that Mimi could very well act as like a mediator between Kirsten and Sari to reconcile if they need to work together. So I would imagine that this stuff is happening as we speak, and that by the time the feeds come back, we will see like where Kirsten has decided to sort of make her bed. Literally.
Yeah. No matter what, like if and hopefully she gets to stay, I'm so glad, because like if she's on the other side opposite Sari, that's gonna be so funny. Like I love that. I love that for us. And I like how she's been so caring with Matt. You guys talked about it yesterday. So I'm glad she's getting another chance. I'm hoping she'll learn from her mistakes. It still feels like she has not really understood what got her in the hot water, unfortunately, which is good for us because that means more messy gameplay. But for her, I don't know if that's so good. So I'm happy. I don't need them to work together. If they're if they're coming after each other, more the merrier. But I do agree with you. Mimi does seem to be trying to mediate so a little bit, and I think Sari is open to it. I think she was just. There's nothing more frustrating than telling somebody exactly how you feel, and then them being like, "But somebody told me something else, and they said you feel this way," and you're like, "But girl, I told you how I felt." Like that is so frustrating. That's so frustrating.
Yeah, and I think that like in my mind at least, the second Sari realizes that Kirsten is going to be a continuing part of the game, she's gonna turn her game brain back on when it comes to Kirsten and handle it very differently. That's sort of how I would assume it would go. All right, so that was stuff from day 7. There was also some stuff from day 8, the morning of day 8, before the feeds went down yesterday. Heisem and Izzy talked a little bit about being targets for the other side. They know that the other side is coming for them and they need to look out for each other. Pretty basic stuff there. Corey also talked to Izzy, and they talked some more about not trusting Cameron and how he's the most active player in the house, and he tells everyone the same story, and how sketchy that is. And really, Corey doing a lot of anti-Cameron work in this conversation.
Very good. Corey's so good. He's doing very good playing both sides. Now, will there be 2 sides to play? I don't know, but he's doing tremendously well.
Yes, and he also people were wondering, like, are they going to talk about what happened with Luke the night before? He does make a point of bringing up, Luke has made some pretty off-color comments, and then the feeds immediately moved away. I don't think he full on said what happened, because when the feeds came back to them, they were still like Izzy wasn't like, what?
Right, exactly.
But he was clearly alluding to it, clearly trying to be like, I'm aware that like something happened.
Yeah, I think Corey is trying to figure out, is it his place to tell?
Yeah, I think so too. There was a really good conversation between Jag and Jared. This is something that I would imagine would make an episode, but hey, we've got time. So let's do it. Jared asked Jag about his turban. And Jag explained that it's part of Sikhism. Because Sikhs see themselves as saint warriors or peaceful warriors. And he interprets that to mean that they try to be welcoming and inclusive and kind and spread laughter and stuff like that for the peaceful part. That's his interpretation of what that means. And the warrior part means that they stand up for what's right. And wearing the turban is a commitment to helping people in need. And he says the turban has been really misconstrued in a lot of places, especially the US. But if you go to Punjab in India, where Sikhism originates, a turban is seen as a beacon of hope. If something goes wrong, you find somebody wearing a turban. When his sister studied abroad, she went to India and they told everyone in her program, something goes wrong or you need help, find someone with a turban. And when she told that to him, it really meant something for him, because it really like made him proud of of who he is and the turban. And so tying it every morning is a constant reminder of those values for him, to remind him like, hey, this is who I want to be. These are my values. I was just very cool to see Jag explain this. And this is again just why representation is so important. And it was just really, I mean, I really liked how he explained it. It was very, very interesting stuff.
I love learning about other cultures. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love seeing it on the feeds. You guys talked about it last night. Like as much as I like seeing representation for my people, I love seeing representation for other people. I love learning, like Amon said, like actually researching stuff. Like after Jag, we heard about Jag's casting. It's amazing. It's amazing, and I truly want this for everybody. I want
Yeah.
that feeling for everybody.
Yeah, and I certainly hope this I mean, it was a very powerful moment, and I would imagine that they'd put it in an episode. Maybe not tonight's episode, but like it was just between Jag and Jared. Kirsten did walk in, but if Kirsten's going to be there anyway, then they can. I think they can easily put it in next week. Um, So that was mostly it. Suri and Mimi also talked about their targets. They talked about Blue and Jag as initial nominees. And Suri was like, yeah, and then we can backdoor like Riley or maybe Cameron. And Mimi was like, nah, it's got to be Riley. But I feel like Suri would prefer Cameron. I think Suri's gonna, or at least at before everything happens, was trying to push a Cameron thing. I think that Riley crying to her, really, I think that like not only did she feel bad for Riley, but I think also she does feel like I've got Riley.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Riley is buddy in my hands. This Cameron dude, on the other hand, but Jared and Mimi and Heisem and they all want Riley. So I think that it's like an uphill battle a little bit here, but I think that she would prefer Cameron here.
That feels a little short-sighted to me. I guess it's because of everything that we know. Like, why go after Riley when it definitely feels like they're a bigger fish to fry? But I right now, Suri seems to be the only person who realizes that. I think, unfortunately, I love Jag and Blue, and I hope that both of them can come out unscathed from other side HOH. But they are just too far behind. And at least they're going up as initial noms to win veto, and that they are not technically the primary targets. So I actually love this plan. But I really want Cameron gone. So we'll see if Suri can like work her magic throughout the week. But I also think it could be because Riley keeps isolating herself in the HOH room. She complains about people not talking to her in her isolation, but she self-imposes it. So yeah, I think I feel like if Riley goes, nothing major shifts in the game, but that's because of our knowledge of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's about it from the day that I have, at least. Mari, is there anything that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, no. Well, nothing from the day.
Anything. We got time.
We got time. So I have to talk about the Jared of it all in this situation of Luke. I think you did a pretty good job yesterday, Taran, minus saying that Corey was the one who said it.
I'm telling you, something about Corey's name. I mix him up with Riley. I mix him up with Cameron, and apparently now Luke as well. Like, I don't know what it is with Corey.
But I think, like you said, cut and dry. Luke says the N-word. We all know that's bad. Like, you should, if you don't, then I don't know what to tell you. But we all know it's bad. We all know he shouldn't have said it. So that's not like the biggest dispute or the biggest news on what's going around on Twitter. Of course, what people are very much talking about is Jared's reaction to Luke saying the N-word in front of him. And I would just like to tell people, like, Black people, we're not a monolith. I've said that on this very program so many times. It feels like we're not all gonna react the same way to certain stimuli and certain things because it's based on our experiences. It's based on a whole bunch of things. So I really encourage people like Isaiah and Pharaoh, of course, Silent Podcast, The Reality Kingdom. They did a very good job of hosting a Spaces yesterday that featured, of course, Chappelle, Geneva, Ty, a lot of us RHAP people, Josie, a lot of other podcasters, Black podcasters, and Black BB Twitter, and everybody was in it. I would definitely say if Isaiah has kept it, go check that out, because opening up a space for multiple people to talk about their feelings and reactions to the situation, I think is always the best course of action, because we're not all going to respond the same way. And I truly don't believe in tone policing people's reactions to other people saying racial slurs. Now, I would not have reacted the way that Jared did. I think a very good reaction that we've seen in the Big Brother house to somebody saying the N-word was Bailey reacting to JC saying it. I think she did a very good job of trying to shut him down, but then he got defensive, and then it turned into a thing when she didn't mean it to turn into a thing. Jared's response was it did make me very uncomfortable. I really didn't like his response, but I'm not gonna sit up here on the internet and call him other racial slurs. You know what I'm saying? Because I know that's not my reaction. I don't care if we're in the Big Brother house. I don't care if we're in real life. That would not have been my reaction. I think if he had just kind of kept it at like, dude, you're wilding right now, I think I would have been like, okay, that's fine. But the fact that he went so far to also kind of like make sure that Luke wasn't uncomfortable. He laughed at Corey and Heisem being uncomfortable about the word. He shared an anecdote about him dating a white girl. Like, that truly made me very disappointed in him, because he might be okay with Luke saying that. He might not feel uncomfortable from Luke saying that, but I'm pretty sure if you ask Sari or Mimi or Kirsten or Miss Felicia, like, a lot of them would have different reactions to that. So I think a perfect response from Jared would have been like, hey, dog, like, okay, I might not have an issue with that, but be careful who you say that around, because other people might. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, we really need to talk about racism, like combating racism, not just by not being racist, but by being anti-racist. Chappelle brought up a great point in the Spaces. Like, these are the moments that we're asking people to call out. Like, Heisem and Corey could have called him out too. Like, you should never be thinking, is it your space to call out racism? Because that's the only way we can try and end it. We can't end it by avoiding it. You have to be actively anti-racist in order to combat racism. So even Hassam and Corey, I'm not saying they should have. I'm not like, going in on them, but they could have said, yo, dude, that's not cool. Anything could have been a better reaction than what we got. You know what I'm saying? So the biggest news is, and the biggest point to take away is, Luke is gone. Luke is gone. The problem has been resolved. We will see what the fallout is from it. But thank God that they did this week 1. You know what I'm saying? He's gone. One chance, he's out. There's no slip ups. It's not like Kyle last year, where by week 3, week 4, we were like, we're looking at you kind of funny. And by week 6, when it all comes to head, now it's all like, oh crap, it's blown up in our face. At least, like Amon said last night, they did it. They removed the issue, and now we can go back with our regularly scheduled program. So I just said all that to say that make sure that you are listening to multiple voices. There's no right answer to something like this, but try to be actively anti-racist in your life. So that's all my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and something else that I feel like I noticed with Luke himself is that not only is it obvious that if you say this word as a slip of the tongue, it means that you clearly are used to saying this word.
My
But it
God.
also seemed like he was used to people being offended by things he says and used to
Yes.
like the kind of like social intimidation to prevent people from calling him out. The way that he opens with Jared, like they were more offended than you were, right? Because you're cool and they're weird, right? Like they're sticks in the mud.
Yeah.
And then when Corey walks back in, clearly still uncomfortable with him, he goes, "Oh, I got scolded because of you, Corey. Why are you so mad at me?"
Weird.
Like
Weird
Corey's
guy.
the person who did something wrong.
Mhm.
Right? Like he's very much like hey, if you say something or don't feel comfortable with this, you're the weirdo. You're the one that's
Exactly.
wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what truly made me feel way worse about the situation. It's like all of the aftermath. Luke just saying it like it was like like what is this sentence you were even saying? And the reaction, that even Heisem later being like, Luke is so funny. He's just so extra. It's like,
Yeah, that
am
was
I in the Twilight Zone here? Like, that's what made me the most uncomfortable about the situation. Like, sadly, but again, I think that Luke is a culprit. Luke is gone, and also people are going to react the way they're going to react on Twitter. And Jared, Isom, Corey, whoever, like that's going to be their reaction because everybody has different reactions to those polarizing situations. So I don't condone a lot of the stuff, but again, people are going to have those reactions and I'm not going to tone police. So, whoo, man, I hate it. Like, such a great week. 8 days in. 8 days in. Racial
Yep.
incident.
Well, hopefully we get the feeds back tonight. I would imagine that would be the plan. So of course I will be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on. There's probably going to be a lot to update because not only will I have to let you know what happens tonight after a new HOH is crowned and all of that strategic stuff is happening, but if it's anything like last season when the feeds went down on day 8 and then came back up, for after the eviction or lack of, there was an entirely like new alliance formed when the feeds came back. So that could be like there could be a new power alliance of like Kirsten, Matt, Mimi, like who knows, right? Like anything could happen. There's going to be a lot to catch up on, as well as a new HOH, new the sides might be at war and all of this stuff, right? So plenty to talk about tomorrow morning on the update. And of course, tonight we'll have the eviction or lack of episode. I'll be watching it live on Twitch. If you want to join me there, we can watch it together. And then, of course, after the episode, we'll be there to recap what goes down. Make sure you also, if you want to play in the Reality Stock Watch game this season, buy and sell shares of players. Go to realitystockwatch.com. You have until the episode airs tonight to make your first week picks. You can do it at any time in the season, but the longer you wait, the more you're missing out on those gains, those dividends. You got to get in early. So check that out over there. And check out the YouTube shorts we've been putting out.
Great
They're
job.
also going out on like the Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all those places. But it's wherever you want to see them. Little bite-sized little piece of information if you want to know just the basics, or share them with like family members that don't otherwise watch anything or know these things. Maybe a good one for those. So yes, that's what we got there. Mari, what do you got going on?
So of course, every week, Wrestling Wrap Up, me and Matt Scott. Go check us out. We have great guests. We talk about the weird, wacky, wonderful world of wrestling. So you can go to robhasawebsite.com/wrestling feed to subscribe there. Me and Sarah Carradine over on Crime Scene, a true crime review podcast. Every Tuesday, we bring you some true crime. So you can go to robhasawebsite.com/crime feed to listen to me and Sarah. I would suggest going to subscribe there because next week we will be joined by the Podfather himself to talk about how to be a cult leader on Netflix. So definitely go and do that. Also, right after this, I'm going to be playing Dredge on my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Mari Talks Too Much. So about noon today, hopefully I'll be beating the game and finishing it. It's been months of me playing this game for like an hour at a time. So yeah, come and join me over there. Of course, follow me on Twitter at Mari Talks Too Much. That's 2 like the number 2. There's a great conversation going on. I asked back on Sunday, like for the deaf community, to talk about what they think Matt is going through, or to explain a little bit more about what Matt is experiencing in the Big Brother game. I pinned it to my profile. So I've gotten so many great responses about how Matt being deaf affects his I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at the chat because they're like, what's Dredge? But how Matt experiences the Big Brother house in the game. And it's just so happens that after I had posted that, Matt has been opening up more in the house about what he's experiencing. So it's been great. I've been learning a lot. If you want to learn some more, just go check that out on my pinned tweets. And Mari Talks Too Much. And again, Dredge is a horror fishing game. So if you want to see me scared out of my boots, come over to twitch.tv /Mari Talks Too Much. So that's it for me. Thank you so much,
All
Sharon, for
right.
having me.
Yes, thank you for joining me, Mari, and thank you for joining us, to the audience. We really appreciate you watching us along here. It's 8 days in to the Big Brother 25 season. We've got 92 to go. So that's what we have for you. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will see all of you next time.